So I just ran my fastest HYROX time that I've ever ran. Not really saying much because I've only done the race twice. So the first one I just did was in March, and that was earlier this year, March 2025. And then the second race I did was the HYROX Race Toronto. So that's the one that you guys have been seeing, the Road to HYROX series and everything. So I actually ran the race. I actually ran the race yesterday, and so these are some of my fresh thoughts that I have after running the race that I kind of wanted to share with you guys. There was a lot of learning that I made and a lot of learning that I did with this. So I actually took some notes because, obviously I like to be prepared for what I do. But there's a couple of themes I want to touch on and kind of share with you guys what I've learned and everything I've learned in terms of preparing for a race. And I guess like how that's helped me evolve and kind of get to that next level when it comes to like my fitness, when it comes to upgrading my mindset, when it comes to just my overall perspective on life. So first things first, yeah, like I said, I wrote a couple notes where I went in detail with some of the stuff I was feeling immediately after the race. So the first theme I have here is that the race isn't won on game day. And so the HYROX race wasn't a test. It was my report card. Every single run I skipped, every time I was scrolling on Instagram instead of sleeping, and every time I half-assed my workouts, it showed up in my race. You can't also fake conditioning, and people think the race day is when you perform, but that's kind of just where you get exposed. So those are some of my thoughts. So first off, so what I did was I created a bunch of different themes, and then I got some talking points that I wrote down and was thinking about and was really reflecting on for each of the different themes I had. So with the first theme, it's that the race wasn't won on game day. And honestly, I think this couldn't be more closer than the truth, just because with HYROX, you've seen, or maybe you haven't, but there's people who try to do the race without preparing for it, and it never works out the way they want it to. The HYROX is a race which requires you to actually prepare. It requires you to be very strategic about how you manage and conserve your energy. And obviously everyone is gifted with different strengths and weaknesses. So you want to make sure that you're playing with your strengths and you're creating solutions to fix and complement your weaknesses. And that's exactly what I did with my partner, Deshaun. So Deshaun is funny because he's actually one of my clients, and the HYROX was something that, we've kind of floated the idea around, didn't really take it too seriously, but we decided that, let's actually run the race together. And through running the race with him, not only have we grown way closer, but I've actually learned how important it is to, I guess, have a team. And it's kind of redefined and reshaped the whole coaching form. What I try to do with all my clients is try to have a relationship, right? But when you have multiple touch points with the clients, sorry, there's some noise outside, but that's when you're really allowed to build and develop and like deepen those relationships. Actually working out with Deshaun in person, because we don't live in the same city, he would actually make the effort to come down to Toronto, and we would work out at my gym, or we work out at a gym I'd get access to. And that was a really great bonding experience, but then it also helped me understand who he is as a person, and that better allowed me to give him feedback for coaching. And not only did we do really well when it came to the HYROX race, but when it came to his overall physique, now that I have a better relationship with him, I'm not necessarily as afraid to, not hold things back and tell him and show him and push him in different areas where he didn't necessarily think he could improve. So that was the one big thing, and the one thing I was really, really grateful for. But like I was saying with the main theme is that the race wasn't necessarily won on game day, and we did really well in this race. And it didn't happen overnight. We've been practicing for this race for at least a few months now, and sending him videos about this and that. And he would show me videos about himself doing certain exercises, and we'd have to form correct. There's a couple trainers that I know who are specialized when it comes to HYROX, and I had them look at a lot of the different exercises and techniques that we were using, and they would also give us feedback. And then I would take the feedback that they would give and then build it into his workout programming, build it into my workout programming. And so many things I have to fix. For example, I'm not a very strong runner. I used to not be a strong runner, but now, I'm a little something. But Deshaun, for example, one of the things that when he first came to me, he was running marathons. And so he had already ran a marathon or two. And so I helped him take his training to the next level to be able to continue to run marathons and also beat his previous times when it came to his past marathons. But I also had to now schedule and start training for running myself, because I'm not running, I'm just going to the gym 2 to 3 times per week. That's my PCT method. And Now all of a sudden I have to start throwing in running in there. So it was a different kind of workout. It was a different kind of way I had to push myself. And so if I had only started running, and for anyone who hasn't ran before, running is a very difficult sport. And if I had only started running a few weeks ago, I'd be nowhere near the right shape that I would need in order to compete at a competitive level when it came to the HYROX. So, like I said, the race wasn't necessarily won on game day, and I feel like the race kind of exposed a lot of people too, because even when I was running it, it was so crazy. I never seen people pass out on the stadium. People were cramping up like crazy, and in my head, I'm just like, dude, did you not like drink your water with electrolytes and carb up the right way and stretch and prepare properly? Like, why are you cramping up? Like, this should be where you perform. This is where you shine. This is where you should be. This is a dance floor. Like, this isn't where you come to get hurt. Like, and obviously injuries happen, and I don't mean to sound like cocky or whatever, but injuries happen. But I also feel like there's a lot of issues I saw that other people had, where it's just like, okay, you know what? That was really a lack of preparation. Or I'm seeing people having to stop partway through the race and they're having to take a break, or they're getting on one knee, and it's like, dude, you just weren't prepared. It's obvious. Like, the race is just exposing you. That's all. That's all it's doing. So that's one. That's the first thing I wrote that I want to kind of like reflect and kind of share with you guys, is that whatever you're doing in life, I guess the key takeaway here is whatever you're doing in life, if you're trying to achieve anything great, it's there's a good chance it's probably not going to be built in one day, and there's a good chance that it's going to take you a while. Not necessarily a while, but anything worth having doesn't come easy, and you actually have to do the work, the hard work, the work that you don't want to do every single day. Well, not every day, but like most, you have to do it consistently in order to get the results you want. And when I think back about it, there were so many days where I was running where I really didn't want to run. I still don't like running, but I ran anyways. I ran 15 kilometers. I ran 12 kilometers. I woke up at 6 a.m. to run this. I woke up at this time to run this. I ran when I didn't feel like it. I was watching videos on running and improving my technique, improving my form. I did so many different things in order to improve my running for myself, that it all paid off at the end, because when I was able to cross that finish line and look at the time and how fast we finished the course in comparison to not only my time in March, but also in comparison to my peers, it's just a blessing. And so I was just very, very grateful to be able to run that way. And obviously I want to give thanks to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me the strength and the perseverance to push through. So that was like something I needed to really heavily rely on, like my faith, throughout this whole race and just this whole preparation process. The next one I wrote was public goals, private battles. So I told everyone that I was gonna run like close to an hour 10, and I was gonna run, like, that was my goal. That's what I was telling everyone I was gonna do. And I didn't necessarily post the nights where I'm walking home from training and I'm dragging my leg behind me because my leg hurts so much. And I feel like everyone loves the announcement. People love when you start and you kind of declare your big goals and everything, but only few can really live through that accountability that it takes you to show up every day, even when no one's watching. And I think that's the biggest thing too. So anyone could say they have a goal, anyone could say they want to do X, Y, Z, but are you actually going to show up today, tomorrow, and the day after? And it's like, yeah, they might. But when people stop looking, sometimes when people don't get that validation that they're used to having, that's when they stop showing up the way they should. And so for me, when I first obviously posted about HYROX and I was posting my HYROX stuff, I was getting a ton of validation. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, yada, yada, yada. But then people don't really care that much afterwards until you do it. People don't really care to see you prepare that much. It's like, whatever. It's like, oh, he's just doing his race. It's whatever. And then if I stopped, no one's going to bat an eye either. But as soon as I performed and I did well, then everyone's like, oh, wow, we actually care again. And so that was one of the biggest things too, which is, you can make your goals public, but then you always have to fight the battles in private. Like, every single time you fight the battles in private. And the biggest goal is, and the biggest key is, can I still hold myself accountable even when no one's watching? And for me, when it came to fitness, that was the biggest thing, because when I started my weight loss journey, when I was really starting to get in shape, I was getting a ton of motivation. I was getting a ton of external validation from people. But as soon as I stopped getting that validation, I'd noticed that my results also stopped as well. Because I wasn't getting necessarily praised by my parents or my friends for going to the gym, I didn't really want to go to the gym as much, because I wasn't getting praised for how disciplined I was eating my chicken with pasta or whatever when everyone else was having pizza. I stopped doing it because I realized, oh, these guys don't care. So because they don't care, I'm not getting that validation. You know what? Let me just eat pizza. What's the big deal? And so then they would secretly start to lose respect, and then from there, yeah, just one thing led to another, and then now I just don't get that validation anymore, or I didn't get that validation at the time. What I want to say is there's a cost to saying something out loud. Out loud, it forces you to become the man who can back it up. And so that's why whenever you have a fitness goal or whatever you're trying to do, I think it's always cool to have some kind of external accountability, because having external accountability not only is going to make sure that you're actually doing the thing, but it's also going to make you a lot more accountable for what you say you're going to do. And so by me saying I was going to do this XYZ with HYROX, it kind of forced me to become the man who could back it up. And then my life became a lot easier when I started moving and hanging around certain people. So I can name like 20, not 20, that's a lie. I can name like 5 or 10 people off the top of my head who, by spending more time with them, and they know exactly who they are, but by spending more time with them and working out with them and training with them, literally in the Road to HYROX series that you see me post, I not only leveled up my game, I became a lot more confident in my own abilities, and I was just able to actually get to that next level. And that's just through surrounding myself and putting myself in the right environment. So that was one thing. I think environment means a lot. And then the next thing is that I wrote down here is brotherhood and suffering. So you can run the HYROX race solo, but when you run doubles, the guy, I don't even think this makes sense, but I'm literally just giving you guys my raw thoughts after. The guy dying next to you is your biggest accountability partner. And you don't bond over wins, you bond over suffering. And I think that's so true, just because when it came to like all my guys, suffering with them in the lab, in the gym, doing those hard workouts, pushing ourselves past our limits, that's where the biggest bonds are formed. That's where it's like, man, I know this is gonna pay off. And we structured it in such a way where the training that we did was actually harder than the race. So by the time the race came around, I wasn't necessarily so tired to the point I couldn't even stand up. I was more so like I prepared for this. And I think that's kind of how it has to be. You have to make sure that whatever you're training, whatever you're doing, you're working so hard so that by the time it's a day to perform, you already feel like you're ready for it, and you're not getting surprised the day of. So everything we did on the HYROX race, it was nothing I hadn't done before. I've done all that stuff before. I've practiced, I've trained hard. I did all those activities before by myself, and now doing it with my partner day of, and training with my partner after having trained together, after having practiced transitioning from activity 1 to activity 2 together. Like, it was easy. It's light work. And so I say all that to say that, one, not only is Rome not built in a day, but 2, kind of having that brotherhood, having that accountability system to kind of keep me going, even on days I didn't want to go, and get me training past my limits. That is one of the biggest motivators, and that's one of the biggest things I learned, how its importance from like this whole HYROX training. I thought I'd feel proud after running the race, but I just felt more hungry because now I know what's possible. And I saw guys who, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm in good shape, I'd say. And I saw guys who weren't in as good shape as me, but they ran faster than I did when it came to the HYROX race. And that really pissed me off, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, if those guys can run this fast, ain't no reason why I should run that fast. Ain't no reason why I can't run that fast, because I feel like I could be in better shape than, like, I'm looking at the guy, I'm looking at his tummy, I'm like, dude, how did this guy run that quickly? Obviously, I know he prepared, and I don't necessarily know what he got through in order to get to where he is today, but it just made me hungry for success. There's this one anime I watch, and in the anime, it's like 2 teams playing against each other. It's a volleyball anime, and there's this one guy who has a really crazy save, and everyone's surprised because this guy, he's not that great when it comes to receiving the ball, and he made a crazy save. So everyone's like surprised, right? And they end up losing the point, but instead of the team to be demoralized and be like, man, like that was such a crazy save, but we still ended up losing the point. The guy who made the save started telling everyone like, oh my gosh, guys, like did you see my save? Like that was crazy. And he was like laughing and everything. So instead of the team to get demoralized, what happens is it has the opposite effect. Because everyone on his team saw him make that save, knowing that he's not that good at making saves, it made them hungrier for success. Because it's like when you're hungry already and you see someone else get a little bit of food, aka a little bit of success, it makes you hungrier. And then when you're hungry and you only get like a tiny bit of success, then it makes you even hungrier. So, for example, let's just say there's a homeless person, right? And a homeless person, he just gets a bite of a burger. Let's say before, his hunger was like a 5 out of 10. Now his hunger is going to be a 7 out of 10. Just because he had a little bite of that burger, he knows what it's like to eat. And he's like, damn, like, yo, I need that bad. And so he's going to be even hungrier. And so now imagine if there's another homeless person who watches a homeless man get a burger. Before, he might not have even been hungry, but now that he saw you get food, oh, nah, he's even hungry. His tummy starts rumbling. Even he wasn't even hungry before, but just because I saw you start eating, his tummy starts rumbling. And that's kind of what happened for me when it came to the HYROX. Like, I'm seeing all these guys, these little guys, man. I'm like, man, like, how are these guys getting these crazy ass times? And seeing them get those times, it made me even hungrier for success. So that was one of the things. And so, yeah, that was one of the other things I was thinking about. And the last thing, too, I wrote also that every man should do something once a year that scares the ego out of him. And so I don't care what it is, whether it's some kind of a HYROX race, whether it's some kind of, I don't know what it is. But I feel like every man should do something which pushes you out of your comfort zone. Because not only does that force you to change, it forces you to look at life differently. And when we're in our comfort zone, that's literally the worst place to be, because comfort is always, I think comfort is like a cousin or best friend of like failure or something like that. And by forcing yourself into something like a race, like a HYROX race, or I don't know, something that just pushes you out of your comfort zone, I'm telling you, it literally will change your life when it comes to raising your standards, helping you to truly, truly, truly lock in. And it really just gives you a different perspective on life and everything. And so even for me, I'm looking at next year. Okay, you know what's something crazy I can do next year, which is gonna push me out of my comfort zone? I'm thinking, maybe swimming. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I might start swimming. Why? Because I might do a half Ironman next year. I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about it. But there's that. And I'm also in really good shape right now too. So I'm thinking, what if I do like a bodybuilding competition too? So you know what I mean? And that's going to push me out of my comfort zone. It's going to push me to a level where I've never necessarily been before. And so I feel like every man should push themselves to a comfort level where they haven't necessarily been before. And that is just kind of how you unlock the next level. And then by continually finding ways to push yourself out of your comfort zone, that is the only way to level up in this life. That's the one thing I've learned. Whether it's in fitness, whether it's in anything. Because when you stay in comfort, that's not how you grow. You never grow in comfort. You always grow when you're outside of your comfort zone. We hear it all the time, but no one actually does it. People just want to be stuck in their same boring, simple ass routines. But no one's actually going to wake up and sign up for a race and they're like, oh shit. Oh, I signed up for a marathon, so I guess I gotta like learn how to run. But then as you learn how to run and as you get better at running, you start finding out other things you started to like too. So again, there's another anime, it's called Hunter x Hunter. And in the anime, the final quote, I'm not gonna spoil the anime for y'all, but the final quote was, okay, you know what, let me spoil the anime real quick for y'all. So there's this kid in the anime, he's just trying to find his dad. Okay, his dad walked out his dad walked out on him when he was young. He's now just trying to find his dad. At the end, and so he's looking for his dad. He makes a lot of friends along the way. He learns a lot, yada, yada, yada. At the end, he finds his dad. Cool. And his dad tells him that don't neglect the small detours in life, because sometimes you'll find things more valuable than what you were searching for at the end of the day. Because when a kid finds his dad, he's like, oh, well, I guess I found you. And that was it. But then his dad was telling him that, like, what you want to make sure is that you're not only so tunnel visioned on the end goal. Like, look at this whole journey that you've been on, and that's where you'll find more pleasure and more joy than the end result. So for me doing a HYROX, yeah, it was cool, it was fulfilling, don't get me wrong. I got, my accolades, I got my little pictures, I got my little videos, I got my little content from the HYROX. I got my fulfillment, my gratification. Yeah, cool. But I'm looking at what did I learn along the way. And along the way I made some new friends, new brothership, new brotherhood. I've learned things about myself. I've had to learn things about nutrition and change things up, about nutrition timing when it comes to races, how to carb load properly. I've had to learn how to run properly, how to structure my runs, and that not all runs are the same. I've had to learn how to balance running with weightlifting. I've had to learn how to perform specific movements, starting from zero. I've had to learn so many different things. And I actually value all those things that I've learned more than I value just running the HYROX race. You kind of catch my drift, and so you want to make sure that you're not neglecting. Yo, I swear there's always like police, so I apologize. I live downtown Toronto, and the police are just, yeah. But I think you guys catch my drift when it comes to what I'm trying to explain in terms of don't just be so tunnel vision and tunnel focus on the end goal. Look at all the small stuff. Like take time and smell the roses. That's literally what I'm trying to say. So these are like all the things that I've learned from the HYROX and from training. Is there anything else I wrote here? Yeah, no, that's it. And that's literally it. So I just want to share some of my post HYROX thoughts with you guys, and I think there's maybe one or two learning points. So this doesn't necessarily have to only apply to HYROX. This can also apply to, I don't know, whatever it is that you are working towards. But I hope everyone has a great day. I've been posting a lot on YouTube lately, and I'm seeing the love that you guys have been showing me, so I'm super grateful. Lots of love for you guys, everyone watching this. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.